Brother.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Harizakwan and I'm from Group 3. And I'm the first presenter of our group titled Rationalism. Rationalism. What's that? According to Blanchard, rationalism is a Western philosophy that regards reason as the chief source and test of knowledge. So whatever comes up in humans' mind, that is the byproduct of their own thinking and deduction. Next, there are three concepts of rationalism. First, knowledge of a subject matter is unwritten by intuition. Secondly, knowledge of a particular subject matter is innate and determined by nature. Thirdly, the concept or idea that constitute our ability to think about a particular subject matter are innate. Thus, knowledge is innate. The founder of rationalism is René Descartes. He was a French philosopher, scientist and mathematician whose ambition was to introduce into philosophy the rigor and clearness that delighted him in mathematics. He laid the foundation for the 17th century continental rationalism, later advocated by Spinoza and Leibniz. But near the 18th century, the concept of rationalism became popular, and advocates of his position were largely from the continental European countries of France, Netherlands and Germany. The factor that led to this development was because at that time, people considered themselves rational and they were willing to accept at least one of three concepts of rationalism. Now I will pass to Brother Haika.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Alif Haika and I'm the second presenter of our group. Today I will be presenting and explaining on the principles and the characteristics of rationalism. So what is the basic principle of rationalism or the characteristic of rationalism? It has been mentioned by Brother Zakwan just now, which are the first one, the knowledge is obtained, is underwritten by intuition and deductive reasonings. So this concept and these principles have been supported by a thesis proposed by Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is the intuition and deductive thesis. So what is this thesis all about? So the intuition and deductive thesis propose that some propositions of particular subject matter is knowable by us through intuition alone. However, there are still some others propositions that are known through the deducive of intuited propositions. So for example, René Descartes, the founder of rationalism itself, mentioned that we know the existence of God and he created the world through the intuition and deduction. And Leibniz in his work, in his writing of new essays, mentioned that the senses, although are really significant in gaining the actual knowledge, is not particularly sufficient for us to gain the whole of it, since the senses do not give us the whole of it, but only give for the instances of it. The second principle or the second characteristic of rationalism is knowledge is innate and determined by nature. So these concepts and principles are supported by two theses, which are innate knowledge thesis and also innate concept thesis. So what is innate knowledge thesis and what is innate concept thesis? Innate knowledge thesis propose that our knowledge is, we already have some of the truth of our knowledge in our rational nature. It is proposed by the Plato that we already have the knowledge in our soul. However, upon the unification of our soul with our body, we already forgotten some of the truths and we have to collect it, in which he proposed the doctrine of knowledge. So, the innate knowledge thesis also proposed that the senses, what we call as the senses, the sensation, we are independent of that. The knowledge is independent of that. The knowledge is independent of the senses. And how is that possible? Because the knowledge, we already have the knowledge. However, the sense experience may have triggers the knowledge into our consciousness, but it does not provide us with the knowledge, as knowledge itself already in us, as proposed by the Plato just now. The knowledge is in our soul. Upon the unification of our body, it have been forgotten. So what is innate concept thesis? Innate concept thesis propose the same thing as the innate knowledge thesis. However, the differences is that is the context. Innate knowledge thesis propose on the knowledge itself, and the innate concept thesis propose on the concept. What does innate concept thesis propose? They propose that we already know some of the concepts which are part of our natural rational nature. And it is the same as knowledge. The sense experience may trigger the concept that we already know in our soul to be triggered into and to be brought into the consciousness. And this proves that innate knowledge thesis is entailed with innate concept thesis. And that is all from me.
Do you know that rationalism has affected a lot of people, and one of it is by encouraging people to maximize the use of cognitive and their brain by reasoning and having a logical thinking. So this can be proved when we start contemplating on all factors and consequences of the chosen decision in order to consider the best outcome. On the other hand, rationalism can be extreme in a way that people deny things that they cannot prove its logic and reason. They tend to believe what they can understand and logically think. So they reject the concept of God and the metaphysics like heaven and hell. So here is some example how rationalism can be implemented in daily life. So the first one is mathematical knowledge. We can solve numerical equation and deduce formula and mathematical concept from logical and rational thinking. So for example, in the Western culture, they always prioritize mathematical analysis in quantitative research and science discipline of knowledge.
As we all know, rationalists are people who are very confident that everything happens for a reason. For example, like the phenomenon that relate with science. So, they believe that by believing in this ideology, they will discover significant findings and reasons behind every event that happens. And thus, it will help them to make decisions on brisk choices. Secondly, as the rationalists always question about the already existing general principles behind each phenomenon, which are independence of individuals' perception of knowledge, the result of believing in this ideology will help them to derive undisputed theories explaining the laws of the world surrounding us. Lastly, the strength of this ideology is that it is the best way to approximate the reality, and also it helps human beings to become more realistic with what is happening in this world, as all the theories derived are from human beings' logical reasoning and thinking.
The first shortcoming of this epistemology is it is difficult to apply to practical situations that requires quick decisions. It will delay and will make the process become longer to get the outcome. The second downside of this epistemology is it solely relies on human logic and reason, which can lead to lack of appreciation for other human aspects which are important, like creativity and emotions. This can lead to undesired results because it relies solely on human intellectual. On the other hand, Islamic worldview and rationalism may differ in some aspects. Islamic worldview emphasizes the importance of faith and divine revelation, while rationalism emphasizes the use of logic and reasoning. Thus, Islam recognizes the use and the importance of faith and divine revelation as an important source of knowledge in this world.
So starting with rationalism, this is the idea that reason is the main source of all knowledge. True knowledge is not just discovered by empirical evidence or sensory experience, but in fact it can be discovered by the abilities of our rational minds. The intellect alone is able to understand and discover true knowledge. I see. For rationalists, the main components for attaining knowledge derives firstly from the intuition, so a built-in mental faculty that allows us to recognize and understand what is true. This can be described as a rational insight. Secondly, it's deduction. So, arriving at true knowledge based on logical valid premises. For example, we understand the concept of a triangle and that it has three sides. So, if we were to hold a triangular object, we can deduce that the object we would be holding would have three sides. Thirdly, the concept of innate knowledge or innate concepts. This is the idea that the human mind is created with certain types of knowledge already programmed. It can be seen as a priori knowledge. It is knowledge we do not need experience of to know. Although experience may trigger the knowledge into consciousness or awareness, ultimately it is part of our nature and it is there since birth. Innate knowledge can be seen as coming from God or from another life or even from a higher reality like Plato's world of forms. Nonetheless, all humans have a certain innate knowledge. Interesting.
I'm not here. I just lost most of my money and I don't know how to get them back. And right now I got a ton of money. However, I don't know how to invest because I want to get more and more. So I think you might help me because you're a rationalist, right?
Yeah, you know, Forex.
Yeah, I've
Have
heard
you
of it.
heard about it?
I've heard about it. Yes.
Yeah, let me talk about it. So, firstly, Forex is actually something that where you put your money and you roll it, and then you get your return in so much.
In a lump sum.
Yes, that you can get triple or maybe quadruple of the amount that you invested in it.
Oh. So
How much money do you have now?
I think I got only 1,000 left.
1,000. I can turn that into 10,000
Wow.
in just 2 days.
It's a good investment. But I'm kind of worried actually.
It's okay, you don't have to worry. Right? You agree with me?
I'm sorry, but it's a little bit different from my opinion. From my understanding, Forex is forbidden in our region because Forex will invest their money to the company that operates the illegal things such as drugs and alcohol.
How about you invest in charity and donation instead?
But through logical thinking, right? How can I invest my money into something that I don't know which will be my goals? And if I invest my money into sedekah, so what will I get back? It doesn't give me any direct profit. Where my money goes?
As a Muslim, we should believe that there is a revelation before our logical mind. So we have Al-Quran and As-Sunnah to guide our behavior and lifestyle in this world. So Allah promised us in the Quran that Allah will reward us for the action of charity.
The example of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is like a seed, which grows 7 spikes. In each spike is 100 grains, and Allah multiplies His reward for whom He wills. And Allah is all-compassing and knowing.
Is there any proof?
Based on the 261st verse in the Surah Al-Baqarah, the example of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is like a seed, which grows 7 spikes. In each spike is 100 grains, and Allah multiplies His reward for whom He wills, and Allah is all-encompassing and knowing.
So I think it's a good point for me to invest my money into sedekah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I should go back to the right path. I should focus on sedekah instead of doing Forex. Thank you for reminding us.
Thank you for advising us.
I think you guys make the right choice.
That's all from us. Thank you.